campus of North Idaho College and today's broadcast of the North Idaho College Public Forum. The crew is comprised of North Idaho College television students. Your moderator is North Idaho College political scientist Tony Stewart.
Good afternoon. Today we're going to discuss a subject with you that we believe to be extremely important and not only covers the area of Coeur d'Alene in North Idaho, but viewers in the Pacific Northwest and Canada. The issue is the question of hospice organizations throughout the United States that started some years ago in Europe. Although we will be discussing the Hospice of North Idaho Incorporated, we will address other centers that are found throughout the Northwest. In order to accomplish this task and important goal, we're very happy to welcome to our program the two co-directors of the Hospice of North Idaho located in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. First, I welcome to the program Karen Gates. Karen is a graduate of Onondaga College back east, and she also worked in gerontology at Syracuse University, or did studies there. We also have Kay McGruder, who is a graduate of Sacred Heart Nursing School associated with Gonzaga University, and for the past 12 years served as a member of the Kootenai Memorial Hospital in critical care. As I've indicated, they both now are in these new capacities as co-directors of Hospice of North Idaho, and will discuss that with us. Welcome to our program.
Thank you.
I'm very happy to welcome back to the program to ask our guests some questions, members of our panel. First of all is Richard Snyder from the Department of Anthropology at North Idaho College, Joe Marinovich, who is in charge of nursing and serving the students as our nurse at North Idaho College, and third is Brian Scott, a sophomore in pre-med. Welcome, panel.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We'll proceed to questions at once, and the first series will come from Richard Snyder.
Good. What's a hospice? Is it a building, an idea?
It's interesting that you should present the question in such a fashion. I think that we are all really confused a little bit, or have been, about the terminology of the word hospice. A lot of people have felt that it was an institution or a structure, when in reality it is a concept which addresses the palliative and supportive services of the physical, the psychological, the social, and the spiritual needs, not only of our clients, but it's an all-encompassing, holistic type of care that incorporates the family and the significant others.
Well, who, perhaps Karen, who would avail themselves of a hospice?
Hospice would be available for anyone who is being faced with a life-threatening illness and their families. And hospice, not being a specific facility, is a concept that is available wherever the client is at the particular time of their need, be it in their home, at the hospital, or in a nursing home. Then hospice goes to that area and serves that person's needs.
So you're telling me that it isn't, in fact, a building, but a group of people who are very
That's
mobile
correct.
and can deal with people wherever they happen to be and are in need.
That's right.
Thank you.
Joe Marinovich.
Have you made visits to other hospice programs in the Northwest? And I would like to hear about it if you have.
Yes, we have. We had the opportunity to go jointly. Karen and myself went to Missoula and spent 3 days with their hospice in Missoula, and theirs is very similar to ours. It's a rural type of hospice. They were very, very open to us about all their things that they have accomplished, and shared with us many of the things so that we could get organized.
How long have they been open?
They have been in existence since 1979, I believe.
Brian Scott.
Right now, you're in the process of establishing a hospice in North Idaho. How are you gonna get the funding for this program, and how far are you away from obtaining the completion of it?
Okay. Right now, we are being funded by the Idaho Cancer Coordinating Committee, and they have given us our initial grant to get hospice off the ground. After that grant is exhausted, we are totally relying on the community to support hospice. We already have had a lot of people who have responded to our publicity that we've already had in the forms of contributions and assistance and in donations of materials and office equipment. We plan to continue in that fashion. We also hope to be able to receive monies from foundation grants. Basically, we don't see ourselves as writing for any governmental grants for twofold reason. One, we're being asked by our president not to turn back to your community for support. And secondly, usually when you get involved in grants of that nature, you also get involved in restrictions, and yet death does not restrict itself to one particular group.
How about clients? Is there any financial burden on them, or is it?
No, hospice is free to the client and their family.
And it is a non-profit organization, I take
Yes,
it.
it is.
Okay, thank you.
Since our program goes over a rather large viewing area, I'm sure some of our viewers are not from North Idaho and they would be interested in this. And before we delve into more detail about our own organization, could one of you give us some information about particular British Columbia and Alberta and then Washington, Idaho, and Montana in particular, that are these centers available to other people that serve in the area that we are broadcasting over?
Okay. Yes, they do, Tony. And I wrote down some addresses here that, or phone numbers where people could contact to find out what hospice is closest to their community. And in all of the Northwest, including British Columbia and Alberta, they should call the Fred Hutchinson Center at area code 206-292-6301. Washington residents may call toll-free number 800-552-7212. North Idaho residents should call area code 208-667-4537.
Karen, if you would also leave that information with me in case they were not able to get it down, they could write to our program at North Idaho College and we shall send that to them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Richard Snyder.
You mentioned visiting a hospice in Missoula and said that it was a rural operation, very much like yours, which immediately generated a question in my mind. What's the difference between a rural hospice and an, I assume, urban hospice?
Okay, you want to address that?
I think that when we are dealing with a large area of travel, for one, it is different than when we're dealing with a centralized area, so that we are in need of volunteers in different areas. Hopefully we will have volunteers in all 5 northern counties so that we can address the needs of each individual in that county, whereas our population will probably be smaller than the hospice in Los Angeles. We will cover a larger area. Also, there is a difference in the amount of hospitals that we will be dealing with. We only deal with one here in our community, where others deal in several different hospitals.
Okay, thank you. John Marinovich.
Will you deal at all with the hospitals in Spokane? If we have a terminally ill patient coming out of one of the hospitals in Spokane, will you coordinate that way?
Yes, all of the oncologists will be referring to us from the Spokane Community Hospitals, and they have a tumor board that meets here in our hospital once a month, and we will get the referrals from their or the tumor board here also.
Brian Scott.
So I take it you work in close conjunction with the hospital? Is that?
Yes, we do, Brian. We are right now working with the administrator of Kootenai Memorial Hospital, first educating the hospital so that all of our work collates with one another. And I have spent some time also with Hospice Maranatha, which is our neighbor hospice over in Spokane. And we'll be, after we have educated Kootenai Memorial, we'll be going into Sacred Heart Hospital and educating them, though they are already aware of our existence. If you are a client there, they will call Hospice Maranatha, and if you're on this side of the border, the referral will immediately come to us.
What does the hospice do to the environment of the hospital? Does it bring everyone closer together? Does it make is it one big family? One big happy family, so to speak?
Yes, it is, and I think we're unique. We have talked to other hospices throughout the United States that don't seem to have that relationship, and I think, again, it's because of what Kay said. We're only dealing with one hospital. And secondly, our hospital is in a position where, due to staffing and whatnot, they are looking forward to the availability of having someone giving care treatment while they're doing care treatment.
How about on the community level? Does it also draw the community closer?
I think it has to. The subject that we're dealing with is something that affects every family. It's not a unique disease. Death occurs in everyone's home, and therefore the fact that somebody wants to do something about it and help these people live their life to the fullest can only help to bring a community closer together.
Brian's built our bridge to move right into the structure of the organization and what you're going to do. And may I take that opportunity to ask that question, since I have a little familiarity with what you're doing. I think that our viewers are really beginning to wonder, although you said it's not like some institutions as a hospital and so forth, you do have a structure and you do have a board and you do have ways of funding yourself. Let's start with you, Karen, and would you indicate from the information that you have and experience, how did we get going in Coeur d'Alene, and how are you governed, and are you a corporation? And then I'll come back and deal with some more details with Kay concerning that.
Okay. Last year, the Idaho Cancer Coordinating Committee, Kootenai Memorial Hospital Medical Society, and the Home Health Advisory Board got together, and they saw a need for hospice. So they really did the ground and work and the floor level work. At that time is when Idaho Cancer Coordinating Committee came about with a grant to start a hospice, and from there we developed a board of very strong, active people in the community, which involves 17 board members. Those 17 board members hired Kay and myself to direct hospice, and from there we had an office that was donated to us at 2005 Ironwood Parkway. So we do have a structure in the sense that we do have an office. We're basically just not an inpatient facility. We go to the patient rather than bring the patient to us. And so that is the groundwork that has been done so far. I do see us in the future as having an inpatient facility as an alternative place to go if the home environment is not an enjoyable place to be, or that the family is overburdened and needs a place to put the person who's in their home who has the life-threatening illness, so that they can feel confident about how they're being cared for.
And it is a chartered organization recognized by the state of Idaho. It's incorporated.
Yes, it is incorporated. It's recognized by the state of Idaho, and we're in the process of being recognized by the National Hospice Organization, which is covers all the hospices in the United States and Canada.
And contributions will be tax deductible, I believe.
Yes, they are.
Okay. Kay, concerning getting down to the real organization of working and serving people each day, and may I editorialize by saying that you and Karen really complement one another, because you have areas that you enjoy most, and she has other areas that are different. I sense that she's very involved in fundraising and public relations, many other things, and you've been so involved, I believe, in getting it off the ground from the viewpoint of getting the volunteers and training them. And I wish you'd take a little time to tell our viewers about really the rigid schedule that a volunteer goes through. You don't just volunteer and show up and go to work one day. Would you share that with the viewers?
That's really very true, and our volunteers are really the mainstay of our whole organization, and our community has absolutely been fantastic with coming forth and saying, yes, I want to be a part of the hospice. And in so doing, they commit themselves time-wise to a lot of rigorous and really concentrated work for a while. They are obligated to take a 26-hour training course, which runs over a 6-week period, and then after that, after they have completed that, then they in turn donate at least 1 hour a week to hospice with the families, and that schedule is set up between the family and between the volunteer.
But you're kept informed about that all the time?
Oh yes, that's just the time schedule, okay, is all that they set up independently, and then our whole program goes on an interdisciplinary team, which is the family physician is incorporated into that, along with the 3 physicians that are involved with our board of directors. And then we have a dietitian and a chaplain and a psychologist and a physical therapist, a pharmacist, and a social worker that all work together with Karen and myself and the volunteer to help collate the whole care of our clients so that they really get the best that they possibly could.
And we should also point out that some of the volunteers are going to spend much more than an hour a week. Is that not
An
correct?
hour is all that they are required to spend. It's more realistic to say that they spend between 3 and 10 hours a week.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you've joined our program in progress, our guests today are the co-directors of Hospice of North Idaho Incorporated, an organization dealing with the care of terminally ill patients and their families. Those guests are Karen Gates and Kay McGruger. We shall continue the questioning with Richard Snyder.
I've been thinking, and I want to pose something to you and see if A, if you've thought about this, and B, if so, what your thinking is. You say this hospice is for the 5 northern counties of Idaho. Let me take the point of view of someone living way up somewhere in one of the 5 northern counties and not in the middle of Coeur d'Alene. And might I not view this hospice, when it comes time to fund it locally, as basically being an institution in Coeur d'Alene? And on that basis, why should I contribute to it, since I live 75 or 80 miles away and all of this is going on in Coeur d'Alene, and I don't view it as taking place in my backyard and right there for me to use? And that's one thing. And secondly, if you think about it for a minute, somewhere someone's going to have to come up with a unifying force, something that says, no, we have a free office in Coeur d'Alene, but we really are part of the 5 northern counties. And what's that force going to be that will mean that you're part of all of the northern counties?
I think I could answer that question for you. We are going to be setting up satellite offices throughout the 5 northern counties, rather than expecting people to have to commute down to Coeur d'Alene. A great deal of the people, our referrals will initially start out of Kootenai Memorial Hospital. So quite often you might be a resident of St. Mary's, but will be in Kootenai Memorial Hospital. But should that not be the case, we're also going to have a satellite office. And, excuse me, these offices will be in St. Mary's, Wallace, Sandpoint, in that area. So if you lived in, say, just trying to think of an area that would be halfway between Harrison, then you could go to the St. Mary's office. So if you lived in St. Mary's, and as you said as an example, why should I contribute? There would be no problem with specifically contributing your money to the St. Mary's office. Or if the money came into a general fund into Coeur d'Alene, of course, we would see that in the final conclusion will be that there will be offices in all of the areas. So I don't think we're expecting the people to have to travel to us, or that we would be that far remote from those areas with the satellites.
Joe Marinovich.
I'd like to get back to the question of volunteers for a minute. Do volunteers need any special skills to come into the hospice program?
I think that they all come with very special skills, and that is themselves. That skill is, we all are comprised of different gifts, and I think for us to be able to utilize the gifts that each person brings is a very special part of our volunteer program. Some of the people will have office skills, clerical skills, others nursing skills, and others can give of themselves by their listening skills and their caring skills.
Brian Scott.
Yeah, how do you get in touch with people that need your assistance? Do they come looking for you, or is it a two-way street?
Well, Brian, we have, right now we are taking referrals from doctors, where after the doctor has talked to the client about hospice, then the contact is made, and then Kay or myself go out to the client's family and find out just what their needs are, with the client in control of what the needs are going to be requested. We also are willing to accept phone calls from people who know someone who needs hospice care, but then it's fair that that family realizes that this care that they feel they need has been requested for them, because what a neighbor might think someone needs, maybe they themselves don't. So it's important that the client knows first that this type of care is being questioned for them. And also clergy people are calling us quite often saying that they have members of their congregation who need hospice care. But the client has to be in control, and therefore it would be that person who would maybe not be making the contact, but we would be making the contact back to them.
After you get the client into the program and their family into the program, do you use them to help new families coming into the program, new clients, to deal with their problems?
Yes, we do. They, and that is, I think, a large part of our bereavement program, which is a year follow-up of the family and significant others, is will be followed a lot and supported by the people who have been in the hospice program and helped themselves. I know we have 2 people already who are in that capacity who wish to help.
Brian keeps building my bridges for me to ask my question, the follow-up. Kay, I wish you'd take a little time to inform our viewers. I know most of our viewers are not aware of this process of the hospice. It's something new for this area. And someone who has a curiosity and wondering exactly what you do, could you give us a little more of how you're broken into subsections and so forth? In other words, let's take a family and suppose that the husband of the family and the father has terminal cancer and he has only 3 or 4 months to live. Could you somewhat step us through that process of what your organization would do? Suppose you're coming in now knowing that he has approximately 3 months to live, and let's suppose that's how long he lives. And it's a very difficult kind of cancer, and he suffers a lot, but he wants to be at home. What would you do and during that period afterwards, and how would different organizations within your organization take a step or process in that family and patient's care?
Okay. As Karen had said before, all of our referrals have to have a physician's order to be admitted to the hospice program, so that's initially done. And then our client is seen by either Karen or myself initially. After that initial assessment is done, then we sort of evaluate whether he will need, what services he will need, whether it's nursing service, which most of our clients that are cancer victims will be in need of some type of nursing service. And I think it's important for us to realize in that concept that normally a nurse, when we think of it in a hospital setting, is the caregiver. In the hospice program, the nurse is a teacher and the family is the caregiver. And so we find that it's really important for the person who loves you the most to give the care, and yet if that isn't possible, no feelings of guilt are ever given to a family or to a person if that isn't possible. We are there to support them in whatever they want. And the client is really the head of the entire team, and he decides or she decides what is best for them. We don't do that deciding for them. No nurse comes in and says, this is what you need. We say, maybe this would help, and if it would, we would be willing to give that. But we don't decide. The client and the family as a unit decide what their needs are. So then after the nurse also goes in and makes her assessment and gives suggestion and helps teaches the family, and then maybe a nurse's aide will go in and help teach the family about bathing at home, which is different than the bath process in a hospital setting. And then they are evaluated by the dietitian, and their nutritional needs are helped with, and the physical therapist comes out to the home and does the initial assessment as well on each one of our clients. And they have been organized by one of the physical therapists at the hospital so that they each take turns, so that all the physical therapists in our community can be involved in that process. And then during the interdisciplinary meeting, we all share what we have found. And then the chaplain is helping us during that process to meet their spiritual needs if that's what they need. However, I think it's really important at this point that we bring out that spiritual needs are not our prerogative. our spiritual commitments and philosophies are not ever put on our clients.
I was going to interrupt there to say that if it's a particular part of this service that you're providing, they don't want that particular part, then it's understood they would not receive that.
Yes, and we all have different needs, and some people don't have that spiritual need, and we respect that. Like we said before, the client is in control, we are not.
Then following the unfortunate experience of death in that particular family, then as you indicated earlier, there is a follow-up for a period of time to help with the members of the family.
Yes, 1 year follow-up, if that is what they need. If it's longer and if it needs professional assistance, then we go ahead and recommend that
Thank
as
you.
well.
Richard Snyder.
Did the two of you dream up this idea, or did it come from someplace else? What a little bit of history about this.
Well, hospice originated as far back as the medieval times. A hospice was considered a way station for people traveling out of the Holy Land, and it was more or less a place to go to be fed and replenish and sleep at that particular time. And then there's a Dr. Cicely Saunders who started hospice in the concept that Kay and I are discussing today, caregiving for those people who are facing a life-threatening disease in England, and that was in the 1960s. From there, hospice came across the Atlantic and landed in New Haven, Connecticut, and where the first hospice in the United States was built. Now there are 500 hospices throughout the United States, and as I said before, it came to Coeur d'Alene in December of 1981. So it's relatively new in this particular contemporary concept, and yet it seems to have been with us for ages.
We're almost out of time, and I know Kay wanted to get one other thing in that we've forgotten. That's dealing with pain management.
That is really one of the primary reasons why we exist today. Is the history of hospice has been that it has been 98% effective with dealing with pain, and particularly the cancer patient's pain. So we do have a very involved pain management program.
I am so sorry that we have lost the time. The clock always wins, and I'm going to say to both of you, we will have you back at a later date as a follow-up on what you're doing, because I personally believe that it's a most wonderful service. And I would like to thank both of you for appearing today, and I know that you will be receiving calls from our audience because of this. And ladies and gentlemen, if you wish, you can contact our forum at North Idaho College, and we'll pass on the information to the co-directors of hospice. I also thank the panel for outstanding questions today. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed our program in this very important subject, and in some way that this will be helpful to you in the future. May I invite you to be with us again next week at this very same time, when again we'll be discussing what we believe to be an important issue. Please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
The North Idaho College Public Forum can be seen at this same time each week over this station. This production was videotaped earlier by a North Idaho College student crew for viewing at this more appropriate time.